We often don't consider that today's present was someone else's future. Yet today feels as normal, as ordinary, and as everyday as any old day. More often than not, predictions about the future either look incredibly, well, futuristic, or they look dire. Using an approach called design fiction, we challenged ourselves to imagine the near future differently. Therefore, for 3 days during a crisp October in Detroit, the Near Future Laboratory convened a working group of multidisciplinary designers, curators, artists, and writers. Our objective? To create a product catalog of the normal, ordinary, everyday things from the near future. We wanted to look at the future that we inevitably get, despite the many dazzling promises which we are routinely offered. It's the near future in which the gleaming new self-driving car with the fancy navigation system drives you to Cherry Street when you say Sherry Street. The near future that breaks when you drop it and the warranty just ran out. For example, what would the things we lust after today look like as relics in the near future? This was the goal of the workshop, to take the context of today and project them into a hypothetical tomorrow, and then represent that near future through a collection of products, services, companies, and institutions. We think of this course of action as an embodiment of design fiction, a way of telling a story about what could be through a thing that's made rather than simply a fiction that's written. A way of thinking about, creating, and influencing what comes next.
Design fiction is a way of sketching. It's a way of kind of thinking about possible outcomes without having to be too precious about it.
It sort of brings the pragmatics of design, in other words, actually creating material objects, with the characteristics of science fiction, which is, in its remit, if there were one, it would say, you're meant to think about what could be.
It allows us to kind of try out a lot of different scenarios and a lot of different ideas very quickly.
So bringing those two things together, sort of very imaginative terrain with the material making characteristics of design to make what I would describe as basically props. They sit in a room and they're the thing around which a story evolves.
For me, it's more about illuminating some kind of social possibilities around this stuff, or highlighting some of the things that we sort of take for granted in society in terms of the way we speak about things, the way we think about things, and highlighting them and going like, is this what we want? Do you just want to put this one in a box and say, yeah, we're all going to do it that way? Or do we want to possibly rethink our approach to this?
You can't help but reflect on, careful what you wish for. What are the consequences and implications of those things that we desire? One of the key examples would be the flip phone. By the time it actually arrived, we'd been seeing it for 20, 30 years on Star Trek, the communicator.
Kirk to Enterprise.
So when we got one, it was like, oh, right, of course.
It's not that the objects themselves are perfectly designed, it's that they're provocations or questions, or they're just opening new ranges for exploration. And kind of a propaganda of the deed.
Like, is this real? Is it fake? And you just sort of taking the point of view, well, it doesn't matter. And that's because these props are meant to be things that that they activate the imagination.
Design has a long tradition in creative, speculative products or speculative ideas about the future, or a critique of the present. We are interested in the commoditization, the mass marketization of objects. It might be related to our interest in how cinema or Hollywood movies are using fake objects. We're interested in diegetic prototypes, objects that can be part of a plot, that can be part of a conversation, and that are more important in terms of their implication than in terms of their actual usage.
It's just a lot more effective, and I think a lot more modern, to try and encapsulate these things as prototypes and just kind of like throw them over the wall. Wrap them up as if they were objects that were already there.
Design has always seen itself as working on tangible problems of right now, and anything else is just art or sort of self-indulgent. But to say like, well, no, actually, maybe we will try to solve some. We will take the approach and the tools that we have as designers and try to imagine how we would solve future worlds, fictional scenarios, as a way to inform the practice, I think is kind of useful. It's good.
That's something that we can do cheaply that used to be super expensive, difficult, and arcane to do.
One of the benefits of design fiction is that it provides a playful and experimental environment to try out new ideas without actually having to put those ideas into production. I can take something I want to build a story around and create an object for that story, but the object itself is not really important whether or not it works. And that can start a conversation for designers, but also for storytellers. It allows us to meet.
A lot of science fiction is escapist, and it really diverts attention away from what's happening here on Earth, and it seems a little irresponsible.
I think the aim of design fiction is to promote thinking about alternatives to the way things are currently designed. That you can kind of step outside the preconceived notions of where things are headed, preconceived legal or social or design aesthetic frameworks that we've developed, and occasionally that will provide an opportunity to see things in a slightly different light.
In this wonderfully engaging sort of playful terrain between science fact and science fiction, really insert ourselves in there and find the ways in which we can use that liminal space as a space of creativity.
What is the near future of surveillance, of cloud computing, of future emerging economies? What is the near future of open source education? Will there be beer in the future? Beef jerky? What will stress us out? What sort of future exists for the humble ice cube? How will we get water? What kind of pests will need eradication? Will algorithms for finding love be better in the future? At what cost? Those are some of the questions that we addressed in the workshop. To answer that, we created a design fiction product catalog. It contains some of the things we imagine might be in that future. It was not a means to predict the future. It was a means to suggest it, to imply it, to discuss it. By creating objects, the products and services that would be part of a possible near future world.